Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords, and today I am doing a review of Atomic Punk 2160, post-apocalyptic OSR role-playing by the Basic Expert. I know some of you are well aware that the Basic Expert has had some issues with me and me with him, but this was sent to me before that, and I think you can expect that I will be as fair and objective as I can be in the reviewing of this book, because I'm always trying to keep up a high standard of review quality, right? So we've exchanged words. He did a hate video on me that gave him more views than he usually gets, etc. Here comes Meatball. Hey, Meatball. But that's not going to affect what I comment about this book. Now, I will comment one thing. Meatball is now sitting on the book. From my understanding of it, Atomic Punk has more than one version out there. And so like the original version, which I think is what this book is, Atomic Punk 2160, is a OSR game, like directly, not really questionable at all that it is an OSR game. Then he revised the rules. I think it was in light of the time that the OGL 1.1 was announced, and he was worried because, he didn't really understand that. He was worried that they were going to sue him for using the D&D rules. So he changed the rules to a different system, which I think is like a 2D10 system or something. And that's not this book. I don't know actually if this book. I think it is still available. I think both versions are still available. I might be wrong about that. I could be corrected later, but the one I'm reviewing here is the actual OSR version. All right, so I put it around some other OSR post-apocalyptic books like Wretched Apocalypse. And hey, can I move you, please? Hey, out of the way. Other Dust. I can't quite see it. Other Dust, which is by Kevin Crawford, I believe. And Atomic Punk, I think, is in a similar vein to these two, though. I think both of these are a little bit more kind of realism concerned than Atomic Punk. Atomic Punk becomes a little bit more Gonzo. But that's basically it. That's the only real. That's the real difference here. Whereas there are also games like, for example, Gamma World. Certainly, most editions of Gamma World, not all, because there's one or two that are more realistic than others, or that are dumber than others, right? But like the ones that most gamers think of as Gamma World, which are like 3rd and 4th edition Gamma World. Those are the ones that were quite Gonzo, goofy gaming. Also, you've got games like The World of the Last Sun, which it's a post-apocalyptic setting, but it happens like 10,000 years after an apocalypse, right? So there's where you're getting into territory along the lines of stuff like, Adventure Time or something like that, and so it is a lot more silly Gonzo than any of these are going to be. Okay, so Atomic Punk. Also, you will notice. It's a very small book. You compare its depth to any of the others here, and you can see that it is not a weighty book. Meatball's sitting on my leg. It's going to be very hard to keep this in order. I'm going to just push this up here. I'm going to give myself some more arm room. All right, so this is the product, and you can see it's only 86 pages, so not especially big. Character sheet, very standard, for OSR sort of stuff. I'm not saying it's bad because it's only 86 pages. Keep in mind that, Star Adventurer is only like, 37 or 30 something pages, and 38 maybe. And it's, become a gold bestseller, and it's super popular, and it's a complete system, right? All right, so here you create characters. You roll 4d6 and drop the lowest, or roll 3d6, one of the two. It's up to the DM if he wants the characters to be very slightly stronger, and it would only be very slightly in this case. Experiences. So like all of this is pretty standard OSR stuff. Then you got some backgrounds here. So you've got humans who just get like extra skills and no level limit. You've got mutants. Now, to be a mutant here, this is very interesting because it requires a strength, dexterity, or constitution of 15 or more. At least one of those three, I guess, has to be a 15. And I think that's interesting in a way because it suggests, therefore, based on what's required for that there are actually less mutants in the default, undetailed game world than there are humans. Right? This meatball is really cramping my style here. Meatball, why are you sitting on my leg? All right. So, because in a lot of these sort of settings, you've got this idea that like humans are the ones that are out, right? And like if there are mutants, then there's definitely more mutants than humans. There's more mutants than human in World of the Last Sun too, right? But here, this would suggest, I don't know if he thought this through or not, but it would suggest that there are more humans than mutants. So, it says here mutants are often shunned. They may have certain abilities. They reduce radiation damage. You roll randomly for a mutation. That's good. It's good to roll randomly for the mutation. You wouldn't want this to be some kind of a point buy system. So simple sample mutations here: sight without eyes, brainiac, bugman, beastman, transparent skin, conjoined. So some of these are obviously quite better than others. So it's a chance of luck what you're going to get. Revenant, a special type of mutant that has been granted long life and physical disfiguration by nuclear fallout. They're special because they were still alive before the bombs fell. They have gray or green skin and look like walking corpses. So they're basically like, are these intelligent zombies? I suppose so. They have to have a con of 15. Yeah, I mean, they got skills. They got like science skills. So they're obviously they are, in fact, like intelligent. They're not really undead, but I guess they look like undead or something. So that's an interesting. I wonder where the inspiration for that was. So they have they look like dead, but they're not vampires or anything. They're not. It doesn't imply that they're evil. It's kind of curious. Then we got robots. Okay, so there were robots in the old world, and again, you've got to have 2 physical attributes plus intelligence 13 or more. So it's quite difficult to become a robot. It's quite difficult to be a revenant too. You need 15 con or more. So these are very rare classes. Most of the time, or very rare races, rather. Most of the time, you're going to be playing a human in this setting. And then if you're a bunker dweller, you have a 50% chance. It's interesting, it says every character. I would have thought that might have been like every human, but still. The people have fled from there. They get extra skills if they lived in a bunker, basically, but they have a worse saving throw, I should say. And the classes are, so a bastard. It's a good subject with specialization, sniper or knave. Caravan. So you see the advancement table. It's XP, very much in the basic expert style, by which I mean not the author of the book, but rather the game system. You got hit dice, you got the hit bonus, so it's all very, very standard. Caravaneer, smuggler, merchant. So you got a salesman of the wastelands. You got the doctors, who are either disease specialist or field medic. You've got the gunslinger, hitman, or bounty hunter as specialty. Right, this is a bit reminiscent, actually, of Star Adventure, right? Where in all of my classes, I have specific specializations that get specific things. Except here, the skills are combined with that. Whereas I had skills developed as part of an education package as the character grew up in a sci-fi, and depending on where and how they grew up in the sci-fi world, kind of a bit more like Traveler, I guess. And then you got a survivalist, wasteland warrior, mercenary, raider. So there's quite a few options of classes. They each have their own special abilities. Skill checks. This again looks very standard to the OSR system, and in fact compatible to Lion and Dragon and my sort of games, The Last Sun, whatever. Then you got equipment. So apparently it's pop caps that are the main currency of the world. I guess that could make some sense in a way. And then you've got like armor. Armor is interesting because it can the armor can break. So if a hit is landed on someone wearing armor, which beats the character's AC by 4 or more, the breakage die has to be rolled. On a 1, the armor is broken, only provides half. So this is a good element. This is like the kind of thing you want to have in a post-apocalyptic setting, because in most, like, if let's say you're playing a straight sci-fi and your guy is like a space marine or something, right? It wouldn't really matter if his armor was damaged at the end of a battle. He'd end up getting it repaired after, right? But here it really matters because this is like a whole thing. If you're living in a nuclear wasteland or whatever, you have to figure out how to get it repaired. So that's pretty good. What else have we got here? Weapons. So all firearms and projectiles have exploding damage. Same thing as in my games. Melee weapons. Got your standard array there. Traditional firearms. So there are some special conditions here. So you can have like penetration damage or somebody bleeding out, burst fire, full auto. That's the sort of stuff I have in my section on high-tech weapons in the Gonzo Fantasy Companion, where you have like burst attacks and sprays and all that sort of stuff. So a good amount of weapons, weapon tables, etc. That's good. Grenades, rocket launchers. Adjustments for weapons. So far, all that has been weapon. Now you got some basic adventuring gear. Okay. You have narcotics with some rules on addiction. Some sample narcotics. Of course, World of the Last Sun got high base magical pharmacopoeia in there, which has all kinds of regular rules on regular, like real life drugs and magical drugs. So again, this is he's obviously had good inspirations for this. Adventuring, encumbrance and movement. So this is a measurement in pounds. So you have to like add up your, and again, that makes a lot more sense in this game than it would in certain other games, because in this game, your character, like a resource management has to be a major feature of an apocalyptic setting, especially if it's like a near apocalyptic setting, if it's one where like, the whole world is ruined basically. In some parts of like rifts or whatever, it might not be quite as important, but it's definitely important here. So it's a good thing that you're making the character track their equipment. You're making sure that, armor can be damaged, and so they'd have to fix it. Rules for movement through the wasteland, getting lost, etc. Radiation. So radiation is pretty much everywhere after Fallout, but now it's concentrated in certain places. And if a character gets enough radiation points, they will die if it exceeds their constitution. Okay, it's 10% chance that they might become a mutant instead of dying if they're not already a mutant. Okay, that makes sense too. And again, only 10%. So that might explain why there's more humans than mutants, because mutants are actually, like most, in a lot of post-apocalypse stuff, you get tons of mutants because like a whole bunch of people become mutants. Here, apparently, most people die. Very few people survive but become mutants. Fair enough. So some good radiation rules there. Random encounters, water and food. So some rules on what happens if you run out of food or water. I've got that in in my Sword and Caravan book. You've got rules for followers and for specialists, so you can get. This is okay. I mean, like that makes sense, right? Like, and this is obviously a callback to the classic D&D of henchman and hireling, right? But it does seem a little bit tacked on. I don't know. Like, I mean, part of the thing about the apocalypse is you don't really tend to go around hiring people. Maybe followers you could have, right? Like if you're a really well-known road warrior of the wastelands, you might suddenly start getting a bunch of people following you, right? That could make sense. Somewhat less so that you would like that there'd be someone that would go to check the ruins for food on your behalf, with you, but subservient to you, for bottle caps. Yeah, it doesn't make as much sense. Experience points. So characters can get experience from defeating enemies in general, as well as through the collection of loot. One pop cap is worth 1 XP. Okay, so that's the standard system. Combat encounters, reaction rolls, morale checks. Everything has a morale score. It's a 2d6, okay, so it's the standard morale system. Surprise initiative is 1d6 plus armor penalties plus dexterity bonus. Yeah, exactly like the standard BCMI and also what I use in my games. Got a few extra rules materials there. So you got attack matrices here. He decided to go with attack matrices and is apparently using, like, by default, using descending armor class, but he's got like the crib there for ascending armor class and not too difficult to do. You got critical hits and such. You also have critical mishaps. That's interesting. I guess that can make some sense, unless, like, you've got to be very careful it doesn't become too goofy, assuming that your apocalyptic setting isn't meant to be goofy, right? Like in Last Sun, which I run with DCC has fumbles. It doesn't really matter because it's a Gonzo setting, and you expect ridicule and failure for the player characters, right? Like that's one of the thematics of the entire world of Last Sun is the thematic of failure, right? that everything kind of fails, and it's very fun. But if your setting is like Mad Max sort of thing, then you want to be a bit more careful, because like you can have fumbles, but they have to be fumbles that don't like break the rest of the genre, right? Saving throws, single score. So that's, exactly like what I've got in Lion and Dragon. It's basically what comes out of not Basic Expert, but rather the old D&D rules, popularized by Sword and Wizardry. So you can end up with 0 hit points, apparently. They have to make a saving throw versus death. If they fail, they mean they permanently lose an attribute by 1 point. Success means no attribute is reduced. So a character has a number of negative hit points equal to half their con. So they bleed out 1 hit point every round until stabilized with the first aid kit. If they're at 0 or less, and they die, I guess, when they get to their half their con in negative. Okay. Vehicles, vehicle armor class, hit points, speed. Okay, so here we have some rules basically about like how to handle vehicles and vehicle combat. It's not a huge section, interestingly enough, so I guess this isn't so much Mad Max as something else. But it looks okay. I mean, I devoted more to spaceship combat in Star Adventure than that, but I guess that might be something that happens more often. It depends on what you're doing, right? Like if you're doing Mad Max, you'd be in cars all the time, but clearly this is not meant for that, or unless he wants to do a source book at some point about that. Creatures and monsters, so you have like weird atomic roaches and feral revenants and mole rats, giant crabs, I guess. Mutant ultra grunts, mutant leaders. What else have we got here? What's this? Oh, robots of the wasteland. including a like nanny bot with a laser and warbots, human enemies, raiders, and such. And then we got loot tables. Okay, that's interesting, which are like percentage of caps that you get, consumables, and gear. Individual loot. And then you have a table of consumables. So I don't know, maybe this is not so much Mad Max as it is, what is it, I don't play video games. The one about like the domes and stuff, or the bunkers or something like that, and Fallout, I guess. Is it Fallout? Is that the game I'm thinking of, the video game? It could be that, yeah. Weapons. So some good random tables there, I guess, yeah. And apparently some weapons for some reason have special bonuses and favored enemies. All right. We'll allow it, I guess. That seems to me to be quite the shoeing in of D&D. Ow, cat, don't dig your claws into me. Jesus. Meatball suddenly decided to like try to get up, and she dug both claws right into me. But yeah, we'll allow that to be included in the rules, I suppose. So all in all, Atomic Punk 2160 seems to be a solid little RPG. The question is, how does it compare to other games similar to it? I don't think Last Sun or Gonzo Fantasy Companion are really all that similar to it. Though I guess you could run Last Sun or the Gonzo Fantasy Companion with these rules and have those being played, as the setting, and focus it that way. But I think like another example or something that would be closer might be Wretched Apocalypse here by the Red Room. And as you can see, this one's got a lot more material to it. And I guess it depends kind of what you're looking for, right? I think that of the two, this one obviously has a more in-depth production, but it also has some assumptions in setting, right, that you may not want, right? Of course, this one also has certain assumptions of setting, but it's a smaller amount because it's a smaller product. And then Other Dust, by Kevin Crawford, likewise. I mean, I think if I remember correctly, it's been a long, long time since I reviewed this book. But I believe that, it's got all the standard Kevin Crawford stuff. So it's got, special encounters and faction rules and stuff like that, which are all really awesome. And it'll work well for a certain type of post-apocalyptic game, right? So I guess if what you want is something as bare bones as possible, and there's nothing out of what I described is in here that is like a big red X as far as the type of post-apocalyptic game you want to run, then Atomic Punk could be a good choice, right? If you want something that already comes with more meat, then you may want to look for other products, if it's not that like you've got your own post-apocalypse world, you don't really need a lot of additional content type material, additional setting or fluff or whatever you want to call it that would, random encounter tables or things like that, or generators. You don't want a lot of that stuff because you've already got in mind exactly what you want to do. Then you may be better off going with Atomic Punk, right? If you want stuff that will have additional support, so to say, then there are other options. And I guess that's everything that I had to say about this. I hope that you guys think I was fair in my assessment of it. If you like this video, please share it anywhere that you think people will find it interesting. I don't think anyone will be offended by it necessarily. I don't know. Maybe the basic expert will be. Who knows? Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. And if you want to support me, well, check out my products like War of the Last Sun and the Gonzo Fantasy Companion, or my various historical authentic books. By the end of this month, we will have Heroes and Villains of the Silk Road. It's coming out, which is a 125-page book, I think, of biographies, stats, biographies and stats for NPCs from Sword and Caravan, and a number of extra little bonuses there, like the assassin class and Song Dynasty high tech items. Yeah, they were quite remarkable. So check out all my stuff. My RPG Pundit Presents series. You can pick up PDFs for 99 cents to $4.99, and you're getting something that's playable for you. But you're also supporting me, and I thank everybody for all their support that you guys give me all the time. I really appreciate it. So, anyways, that's it for this review. Share the video. Currently smoking. This is a Nirup egg plus Argento roots.